from the vault, high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us again. We're having a very special edition of the Talking Catholic podcast. It's our coronavirus edition, and we wanted to bring on some guests that would be very knowledgeable, not only about the coronavirus, but also about how they're dealing with it, as we are people who are practicing social distancing. So we're recording this using an apparatus called Zoom, which is a web conferencing service. Give them a little plug. And I brought in a number of my YouTube hosts and one of their mothers, who happens to be an RN, and we wanted to have a conversation about everything that's going on in the world and how we're dealing with it both physically and how we're dealing with it spiritually. So as we go around the table, let me introduce first, and on my screen, I'm going sort of right to left here, Star Martinez. How you doing, Star?
I'm good. How are you, Mike?
I'm good, thank you. Can you give us your bona fides? What you have, not only are you a minister, but you are a youth minister, a young adult minister, but you are also a YouTube host. What is it that you do for us?
I am the host of Keeping It Catholic. The channel's directed towards young adults, but it's really for anybody who really just wants to learn more about their faith and just get closer to God. And
what about your other full-time, part-time job? In terms of the Violent Catholic Millennium Ministry?
That I am a young adult group director, and yeah.
Oh, she's so retiring about it. It's actually, she puts more effort into anything that I've ever seen, but you get her to talk about herself, she clams up. That's okay.
Like it.
That's fine. And next up in line is someone who I never have a hard time getting to talk, Donna Ottaviano-Britt.
That's really nice, Mike.
I thought it was me, Mike.
Donna, what is it that you do for the diocese? Similarly, you wear multiple hats.
Lately, it feels like I might work for you, so I'm always creating boundaries for Mike Walsh. So I head up the Office of Discipleship and Leadership for the diocese, which is really around creating disciples for Jesus, as well as helping the laity and clergy together lead the church into its future. And then the other thing that I do is I am a YouTube host for Joyful Disciples.
An excellent YouTube host for Joyful Disciples. Matter of fact, as I tell everyone, make sure you watch all of her episodes, but particularly the one where she goes to Italy. She's rolling her eyes right now because she cries in the middle of it, and I love it.
I did not cry. I got a little verklempt talking about something. I did not cry.
That's very true. All right, now the voice you've probably heard most often with me in the last 6 months is Kari Janisse. Hey, Kari, what's going on?
Hey, Mike. Good to see you.
What are all the things?
See you in person, though, but virtually it's nice.
That's not so bad. So what are all the things you do for the Diocese of Camden?
Okay, well, my full-time job is in youth and young adult ministry at Our Lady of Peace Parish in Williamstown, and that's geared towards youth, starting in 3rd grade, going all the way through young adults 28 years old with different respective groups. And I help out also on the public school level, running ministries called The Rock to minister the Catholic faith in the public school as well. So that's my ministry job. And then, Mike, you have me doing just about everything else. So usually I'm you can find me here on Talking Catholic as one of the co-hosts, a lot of times with Mike on several episodes a month. So I'm excited. I love doing that. It's fun. And it's even more fun to do it within these parameters now. So I'm enjoying this episode itself. And then you can also catch me on the YouTube for Talking Catholic as well. Youth Ministry Insights is my series, and it's really geared towards those who are interested in helping serve the young church in the field of youth ministry, and also for parents or for even the youth themselves, just to see some things and kind of catch glimpses from the behind the scenes of what goes into running youth ministries, and it's been fun. I got a new episode coming up I just filmed earlier today, also in light of the coronavirus and how we can help the youth too. So stay tuned for that coming out next week.
Excellent. And let's see, next up is Alexis Keefer. Alexis is our youngest participant, is this the first time we've had you on the YouTube channel? As part of these group interviews, I mean,
yes.
you weren't able to be on our original YouTube chat that we posted before all the YouTube shows, and now you have one of the biggest subscriber lists of any of our YouTube hosts. You
Oh
have,
my God.
I tracked all the stuff. You have more likes than everybody else, so you're leading the way.
That's good to know. Thanks,
Yeah.
Mike.
No problem. So, Lex, tell us a little bit about you in addition to, and what your show is like.
Well, my show is based around positivity, which is kind of like my life motto because I've had more than your average 23-year-old struggles. But I never get upset. I mean, I do get upset about it. That's a lie. But I don't try not to dwell on it and get upset about it. Sorry, it's weird having my mom here.
Don't spoil it. We're going to introduce her in a second.
But no. So a couple months ago, I broke my arm, but we're moving uphill because I got the cast off today. I have a brace.
Hey,
back to a brace.
congratulations. All right.
So that's uphill. But basically, my show is just positivity, and that's basically just my life motto.
That's awesome. Thank you, Lex, for joining us today. And then Marianela Nunez. How you doing, Marianela?
Hi, Mike.
I noticed you weren't at work today, by the way. I meant to point that out to you. I feel like I'm all by myself here today at work.
I know. I feel sorry for you. Like you're in the office and I'm home.
You look very comfortable, though, at home. So tell our audience all the things you work on. I got you doing, I think do more than everybody else.
Oh, no. So I'm the field consultant for the Latino Enrollment Initiative. And basically what I do is to promote Latino enrollment within our Catholic schools in the Diocese of Camden. I work with principals and families trying to make Catholic schools more affordable, more welcoming of Latino students, and also sort of like to serve as a support for the principals to learn how to serve the Latino population better. And in addition to that, I am a co-host for Talking Catholic, which I enjoy very much. And Mike bothered me so much to host a Spanish show, and he first wanted me to do radio. So then he said camera. I was like, I'm in. So I started Compartiendo to Dawn, which was the first YouTube show of the diocese, and now we have sort of like a whole set, which is great. And I feel there's being much more presence of the Diocese of Camden amongst our population, not only the Latino one, but across the diocese. So thank you, Mike, for setting everything up.
For anyone who's listening, I've always wanted my nickname to be the Puppet Master, and judging by everyone's reaction so far, it's kind of what it feels like. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that our sixth guest is probably going to say something similar because I roped her into this job too, and I'm not above roping her into other things going forward. So she's a former guest of the podcast, in addition to Lex's mom, Nicole Keefer. How you doing?
I'm good, Mike. Thanks. How are you?
Good, thank you. So what
yes,
is it
that you do enjoy roping people into things.
I really do. I'm just here to push people into the goodness of bringing their message to the people about what they do for the, following the Lord's message. And you do one of the most unique things in the diocese. So what is it that you do for the diocese?
I do. So aside from the privilege of being Lex's mom, I also am the Director of Parish Nursing for the Diocese of Camden. So I help coordinate and oversee and bridge the gap between the local parishes that have parish nurse ministries and the diocese to help provide support and clarification, understanding, guidelines, et cetera, for the parish nurses in the diocese.
Right. And that works through Vitality Catholic Healthcare Services.
It does. It is a division of Vitality Catholic Healthcare Services. Parish nursing has actually been around since before Vitality, but when Vitality was formed a few years ago, we very nicely fell under that umbrella. And it's a great collaboration with all the other healthcare professionals and different nuances we have within Vitality to help meet the needs of people within the community and connect them with services. And we all kind of collaborate together, as similar to the healthcare world. We collaborate together as nurses and doctors and things like that. So in this community setting, we do as well to try and help people stay in their home safely and meet all their needs.
That's excellent. So the reason we've come together today, as I stated at the beginning, is we are chatting on Wednesday, March 18th, as we have all sort of come to the realization of this sort of new normal that we're going through. The Diocese of Camden canceled their masses about 24 hours ago officially. We've basically shut down all of our schools, and now we are following the directives of the CDC and the New Jersey Division of Health Services to basically quarantine ourselves. We're all participating in social distancing. Even Lex and Nicole are doing it right now by broadcasting from two different rooms of the Keefer household in Seattle City, New Jersey.
We are.
So very good with the social distancing. And so what we've been working on in only maybe the last 36 hours as the communications department of the diocese is trying to make people feel better that life is continuing. Our spiritual lives are continuing, even though the Mass, because of this virus, has been taken away from us. And so many of our spiritual interactions, particularly during Lent. I mean, Lent, we had Father Rossi on the podcast a few weeks ago, and part of Lent is sort of this realization of not separating ourselves spiritually, but focusing on the solemnness of our faith, particularly as it relates to what's about to happen to Jesus as the weeks move along and we get closer to Good Friday. And in a small way, I kind of feel like Lent had suddenly taken on a full new meaning, and it's become even a bit more solemn as we've been separated from each other. Donna, you are one of the most vocal pastoral people in the diocese since you joined 2 years ago, probably. And, how has this been for you as someone who has really made your bread and butter, going to every parish in the diocese and being with the people and bringing them to missionary discipleship and then turning around and saying, stay in your homes. We don't want anyone to get sick.
Right. It's been a little challenging because in my role, I really spent a lot of time with the pastors, a lot of time with the laity. So it's a little bit difficult, although Zoom is certainly a tool I have used for quite some time, really, so people don't have to travel and things like that. But I think it's actually hard for me because I'm generally someone that likes to be with people. Yeah. I like to be with people spiritually. I like to be with people as sort of they're advancing the work. So this is just finding new and different channels in which to do it. And so everything that I was doing for the next few weeks has been postponed until at some point later. So I'm hanging out with Joe at home.
Your lovely husband?
Yes, my lovely husband, and sort of navigating these days, at home. But honestly, this Lent is much more sacrificial than even I had planned. Yeah. And so maybe it's a bit of a gift from God. There's more prayer time. There's more spiritual reading time. There's a little bit more time for some things while we figure out how to wrap ourselves digitally around each other, but not losing the opportunity to draw closer to Jesus at this time. It's our Lent. It's a real Lent for us.
And, so some people might be listening right now and going, maybe they're not saying so much as that it's a hoax. However, they might be saying, oh, it's not really that bad. Well, Nicole, I brought you on to tell us, okay, is it that bad? How much worse could it potentially get? I don't suggest to say that you are an epidemiologist, as someone who does this for a living, but as someone who works in the healthcare field in terms of the importance of listening to guidance that we get from medical professionals. How much should we be listening, and why should we be listening to what we're being told from a medical perspective? So
how much should we be listening? We should really be listening. It's not, I've heard word out there that it's fake news and that, the whole COVID-19 really, it's been around for a while. It hasn't. I was on a CDC call earlier today. It is a brand new virus that is still developing, and we do need to heed the warning. And the main reason we need to heed the warning is because initially they said that in the next 24 months, every person on the planet potentially will be infected with this virus. And while the majority of people will not be affected, and they will, potentially be exposed, maybe even carriers for a little bit, they don't know who the lives that they're touching are. And so they could be impacting people who do not have health conditions that will have positive outcomes. So that is one of the main reasons that we need to practice this social distancing. It's very difficult. It makes life challenging, as Donna said. It gets very hard, especially during Lent for this. However, I personally think that we need to listen to what all the authorities, daily there are updates from health professionals and from the government and from local authorities and things like that. The main reason that they're putting these quarantines in place and this social distancing is to try and stop the curve of the inflection and pandemic. So we know that everyone is going to potentially be affected. What we're trying to do as healthcare professionals is mitigate it. So we're trying to stop it from happening all at once, because if the curve spikes too high, there won't be enough health professionals, first responders, hospital equipment to be able to take care of the patients who actually may not have positive outcomes from this virus.
Yeah.
So
I've lovingly referred to myself as a science aficionado. I'm not a scientist, but I'm a science aficionado. And I really get into seeing how things work from an atomic level, quite frankly. And okay. I read astrophysics books and things like that. And what people have to understand is all of that medical information that's coming out right now, and was slow to come out in the beginning, but is now coming out in torrents right now, is you may not understand it. You may not even understand the numbers that you're seeing right now. Because you may be seeing numbers that are spiking very high all of a sudden. And you have to realize that there's a story behind those numbers. Those numbers were low 2 weeks ago, and now they're spiking. Why are they spiking now? It's because the tests have been getting out more quickly. Mm-hmm. Well, how come we're not seeing a spike in deaths in terms of an exponential spike in deaths? And where we are seeing it a bit, we haven't seen 1 million people die. And that's because all of these things that we've been trying to put into practice are the things that are mitigating against thousands and millions of people dying in the first couple of weeks, which is what we saw in China and what we saw in Italy. And even though the United States might have been slow on the uptick, everything that's been done now has been done so that that won't happen here. And we should take a bit of pride in that. Now, there is one group of people in the United States who, particularly in the Northeast region, who kind of ruined it for everybody else. And those were the millennials. So Star.
Oh my goodness.
Why were our millennial friends having such a difficult time understanding that these things are important, that we actually stay away from bars and not go out with all of our friends and things like that? Is this something that particularly affects millennials and their natural inclination, having just recently been teenagers and assume that they are impervious to everything, or am I completely wrong and that everyone's been like you, Sar, and isolating themselves?
I think, for one, it's been difficult. I think for people our age to accept is that I think we are the generation, we like to be with each other, we like to hang out. And I think, unfortunately, sometimes it's being downplayed. And I think, when they say, oh, well, the flu's been around forever. And then, that also plays, I think, a role into our mindset. It's like, oh, well, the flu's been out and this has been out, it's really not going to affect me. Or, for example, when they say, well, the symptoms are similar to the flu, it's like, oh, well, people are just blowing it off. Yeah. And I think that's maybe why, because at first, I'm not even going to lie to you, I was one of those people to say, oh, it can never happen. Like, it's not going to get as bad as it's gotten right now, or it's not really going to affect me because I'm younger and it's really going to affect, someone who's older. And so I think, unfortunately, that's just the mindset that I think a lot of people have right now. Mm-hmm. And I've heard it verbally with my own ears. And it's sad that people think that way. They're not taking it serious. But we need to 100%.
Right. And there are certainly enough elements in our history where we've seen these kinds of plagues, the Spanish flu that came through in the early 1900s, the Black Plague hundreds of years ago. And let's face it, we've been fortunate in our timeline a lot. We've seen the social media posts go around a lot, which was, if our grandparents were able to go to war, the least we can do is go to the couch, and there's some truth to that. And it may seem hard to believe that they are of, I wouldn't go so far as to call them equal efforts. However, the end result is equally important. And while it may be easy to go to your couch, forcing yourself, particularly with people like us who are out and about all the time, to be able to sort of isolate ourselves, that's not easy to do. Now, Kari, I've been following your social media since you've recovered from your illness last week, which has exploded with content of late. And you've been doing a really great job of trying to interact with people, without actually being next to them. So how have you been able to do it?
Yeah, well,
Why have you done it?
Well, I'd say first, youth ministry, and then just people in general. We love being together. And I know in our ministries, we have some set regularly scheduled meetings, events that take place weekly. And so a lot of our youth look forward to them. And when we had to come out and say everything is canceled, and then on top of that, the mass was canceled for a very good reason, to keep everybody separated, it led me to believe, okay, what tools do I have to use and how can I use them? And social media being the number one blessing in this time for our ministries, and I think for people in general to connect, to post, to vent, to be able to have an outlet has been a great tool. So I kind of just been utilizing that tool the best way possible, and in a lot of different ways. Of course, we know there's multiple forms of social media. So we've used our Facebook, we've used our Instagram. I'm kind of in charge of a lot of accounts. I'm in charge of the parish account, my the youth ministry insights account, my also youth ministry for my youth groups account. So in all those avenues, how can I use this to help? And so we've done a lot of different things. I've done posts from what's canceled, what's still on, because there are a handful of things still on, like confessions and adoration in our parish. So the youth themselves can even help, go to those and participate in them. Of course, parishioners can as well. We streamed a few things already, like a Eucharistic adoration procession. And now we're going to stream Mass this upcoming weekend to help. We've also put out videos from our pastor. I put out a video myself, just speaking to the youth so they can hear from me. And I know, Mike, you like when people cry, so watch that, because I cried at the end.
That's awesome.
So if you haven't checked it out yet, you can see me cry. And, it was totally, and Donna can attest to this, it natural just came out. And I was saying how I miss them. I really do miss seeing, as I call them, my kids, and just to kind of start to say that to them and say, we're going to see each other again soon. We're going to have these meetings again soon. But when that is, I don't know. I can't give them an answer. Yeah. It kind of struck a chord of my heart that the tears started to flow a little bit. But being able to use that and put information out there has been really a blessing to me. I felt like I haven't stopped working. I'm like, sit back and I'm like, am I actually working more than I was before? Like, it's been a very weird time, because while I'm so used to being out of the house for a great chunk of my day, that has changed. So doing all this from home and balancing my time also as a mother. So that's been interesting. And now my husband's working from home too. Today was the first day. So it's been an interesting dynamic in the Janisse household, but it's been a great way to still continue working and also continue to kind of feed and nourish the faith in the souls of the young church, and also the church in general as a whole, and anybody watching. I've gotten some interesting texts. I had a mom send me a text yesterday on a post that I posted, just this little reflection on how the coronavirus and what's happening right now with the pandemic correlates to Lent, and how in the isolation, 40 days, how Jesus was isolated, and the corona relating to the crown of thorns, and the silencing of ourselves, the mouth guards, how that related to Jesus' silence. It was really beautiful. And a mom texted me saying, I read it on my daughter's social media, and I just have to tell you that really gave me a lot of peace. And so we don't know who's reading, we don't know who's watching or viewing when you put something out there. So I think the more we can flood with good messages to kind of bring the hope, bring the faith, and keep it going, especially in the time where we cannot just go to church, I think is a really good thing for our Catholic faith.
I would agree. Marianela, you've been working with the Hispanic ministry for years now, and there's often been this concern of mine that when epidemics happen like this, that, it gets anglicized a lot, and we tend to focus on, particularly in the media, which is primarily Anglo, or at least the traditional mainstream media is very Anglo. I'm curious, in the Hispanic community, have you felt that people are taking this seriously, or is it kind of an unknown since so much of that's come out has been English only?
Well, I feel like there's been a lot of good coverage of the media, like that people trust in the Hispanic community. People are being well informed, I believe. However, what I see a lot in our communities is that a lot of our Latino people have jobs that are not isolating people, and they need to work and be out there. So while I'm here at home now, because the diocese closed yesterday, I see a lot of people that are still, need to go out and work and do what they need to do to sort of like keep people surviving and those kinds of jobs. But I see that people are taking it seriously. Sometimes they don't feel, though, as they have an option to really opt out of work and be able to sustain their families and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's interesting because there were actually several. I picked on the millennials because they're an easy target, but quite frankly, but there was another element to this that was a problem too, which was we told on last week, so probably the 13th, I think, we put out information saying, listen, we are going to lift this is the Diocese of Camden, put out information that we are going to suspend the obligation to go to Mass on Sundays, which was essentially, don't worry if you are not feeling well, if you're worried about the coronavirus or you think you might spread it to someone, feel free not to attend. Your immortal soul will be protected and you will not have to go to confession, nor will you go to hell. Giving them an out to not attend. And what we found was that there were large communities that showed up to Mass anyway, the Hispanic community being one of the largest, in addition to seniors around the diocese. And so that basically last weekend, all the holiest of people and all the best drinkers ruined it for the rest of us. And I say that jokingly. It was important anyway. Do you get the impression, Marianela, that
Yes.
Is that your daughter?
Yeah.
I love it when your daughter comes to visit.
She wanted to be on camera, but I didn't let her.
That's okay. We would have loved to have had her on camera. Have you found that it was very difficult hearing that the ability to go to Mass was going to be removed?
Yes, I think that on Sunday I went to Mass and I found more people than what I expected to see there. And it was a lot of people just saying, if there's something we need to be doing now, it's praying. And so we're going to be sort of like brave and follow the rules. We're not going to do the sign of peace as we usually do, shaking our hands or hugging. The Hispanic community is, we don't have a thing like the circle, the personal distance kind of thing. So it's really, really hard to maintain that. So I was not expecting that this was going to happen so quickly. And, just the dispensation of Mass, we were like, yeah, we still have Masses. Like, we didn't think this was going to happen just this week, Yeah. And I bet you that if they had let the Mass schedule open, a lot of people would show up just, because they feel that, they need to trust God more than what, the doctors are telling us. And so I think it was a great decision from Bishop Sullivan to do this because people just feel the obligation to go and trust God more than any other thing.
And the truth of the matter was, if you look back at history, that was actually oftentimes our desire to be together in times of great tragedy was worked against us during a number of plagues and previous epidemics and pandemics, where this back in the day where science was not as far forward as it is now, is not as knowledgeable as it is now, we really did feel that coming together and praying together was what we needed to do, when in reality, that may have helped further a lot of the death we saw in the 1500s and even the Spanish plague in the early 1900s. It's we have a natural inclination. I wrote something recently for the diocese, just a social media post, where I talked about how it was important for us to come together by being apart. And this is what we have to do to be good Catholics and be good Christians is to be apart from each other, which kind of leads me to Lex. Lex, you me in my introversion and you in the physical issues that you've had to deal with through your life, you've been separated for long stretches of time from people because of your condition. And I'm curious, now that you sort of see that everyone else is going through this, who's never had to deal with this before, do you have advice for them? And by the way, if you have advice for him, go check out all of her videos because it has a lot to do with that.
I would just say everything happens for a reason, and just trust that God is all in God's plan. Because if life has taught me anything, it's that God doesn't give you anything you can't handle. So just roll with it, I guess.
That is.
Not that that's because I'm not. It's a very scary situation. But two different types of people that are freaking out about it. And doing everything they can to not go out in public and what is it?
Self-quarantine.
Social distancing. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and then you have the people who are downplaying it, saying, "Oh, it's not that big of a deal." Well, it's somewhere in between there, is my opinion. You just have to have faith that it's all going to work out in the end, and God wouldn't give you anything you can't handle.
This is very true, but as someone like yourself who's had to be isolated for long periods of time because you have physical manifestations, and let's face it, you get out more than any other person I've ever met with your challenges. But when those times when you really can't get out, how do you how have you learned to sort of exist with yourself?
Maybe just surround yourself with people and your family, or just do something for you, read, or recently I've been watching a lot of Netflix, which I know is not the best, but it helps make the time go quicker.
I disagree. It depends on what you're watching.
Yeah.
Well, right now I'm rewatching Gossip Girl for the umpteenth time.
Perfectly reasonable.
But another one of my favorites is a show called Schitt's Creek. My mother can't stand it, but I think it's hilarious.
That's one of the top rated. And for anyone who's listening right now, she did not just curse on the radio. That is actually the title of it. It's a person's last name, SCHITT''S. But that's actually, from what I've been told, that's not only is it one of the funniest, it's one of the nicest sitcoms that are on. It's on right now. Yeah, people just love it.
It's just so it's such a lighthearted show to just make time go by.
Yeah. Well, that's good. No, those are true. And the truth of the matter is, I have to imagine that that people like Netflix and Amazon Prime and Hulu and the new Disney Plus streaming platform and video on demand, those servers must be getting hit left and right with what they've got to
most likely.
My Disney Plus was not working about 15 minutes before this, and I had to leave John Paul for a few minutes while my husband signed off, and I'm like, this is horrible. It's not working.
Now that's the end of days right there. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, when you have a 2-year-old, that is tough.
Well, for me, I think I'm the only one on the. Well, no, and Marianela does. So I have a 12-year-old, and he has been home from school, being essentially homeschooled, distance learning, I guess is the better way to put it, for 3 days now. And as most parents have been posting on social media, we now think teachers need to be paid $1 million a year, because when you have to do this all day long, it's a struggle. My wife has been handling the brunt of it, because while everyone else has been social distancing, I am considered essential personnel in the diocese, so I've been coming to work every day. So she's been doing all the heavy lifting as far as Jack and his schooling. But it's been a struggle for him too. I have to give a lot of credit to the schools. The decision to close the schools was very difficult. Something that Bishop really didn't want to do unless we absolutely had to. This was certainly at a time when the science hadn't quite caught up to speed yet. But the reality was, we knew that they were, as they were lovingly referred to as, vectors. They are the people who, actually, Nicole's nod, yeah, Mike, you used the right term. They are vectors. They are people who could, even though young people aren't necessarily being affected by this the way that older groups are, at least in the larger numbers anyway. They are people who can be carriers. And because of that, going to see grandma was going to be a big problem. And let's face it, a lot of our teachers are older. And that if a kid in the class got sick and got one of the teachers sick, or God forbid, one of our elderly nuns, that was going to be a problem. So it was really the kind of thing where we had to close schools for the exact same reason why we had to cancel masses. We should also say, just to clarify one thing about canceling masses, the churches are not necessarily shut down. The masses that have been canceled are public masses. Every priest in the diocese will continue to conduct individual masses, whether they do it in the church or they do it in their own chapel or their rectory chapel or something like that. They will be continuing to conduct masses, praying for us, having Holy Communion, and praying for the intentions that have been, each parish has been requested of it to say for different people, as happens at every Mass. So all those things are going to be continued. It just happens to be that we're going to be doing it, they're going to be doing it for us. So the Masses will continue. We just won't happen to be there. Actually, Donna, you and I were talking about something today. You're going to do a little bit of thievery from the Archdiocese of Toronto. But you saw a flyer today. It was probably really important for people to understand. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I think it's really important for people to understand that there's such a thing as in spiritual communion. So many of our people are missing Mass. We've talked about the ones that showed up in church, right? So Marianela was talking about the Hispanic Latinas that went to Mass. And we're talking about the elderly. A lot of them are daily communicants. So they can't even imagine not going to Mass, not going on a Sunday and not receiving Holy Eucharist. So we're going to do a little bit around helping people understand what does it mean to be in spiritual communion. What's the process? What's the prayer? When do you do it? So we're going to do a little bit of education for our folks and help them understand how to be in spiritual communion, because our desire alone to receive the Eucharist is receiving Jesus. And we really want people to understand that. So we're going to take a little bit of that on in terms of creating a resource for people across the diocese to understand that, so that they are not really missing the Eucharist. In your heart's desire, in your soul's desire for it, you do receive. Yeah.
And that's, I have to give a lot of credit to our parishes. Catholics, many Catholics, we're slow to move sometimes when it comes to wheeling out new ideas. And we have been, in the communications office of the Diocese of Camden, has been amazed by just how quickly a lot of parishes have gotten up to speed in doing things like live streaming a Mass every day. Bishop Sullivan is going to be live streaming Sunday Masses. Don't know what time yet, don't know the details yet. We're still working on it, but it'll probably be on YouTube, posted to Facebook later on our diocesan sites. But I think we have something like almost 30 parishes now that are doing something like that, which in the day, I say this lovingly, getting our parishes to get a move on sometimes is difficult. And these guys were jumping at it. Have you guys, as you've been around your diocese and your parishes and things like that, have you seen any extra effort being put forth, whether in your own parish or parishes around the diocese, that of them really trying to bring this new ways of bringing our spirituality to the people while not breaking any of the social distancing rules?
Yes, I've seen a lot of it. Again, I mentioned some things that we've done at our parish and will continue to do. And then earlier today at 3 o'clock noon, Father John Rossi went through Glassboro and the campus of Rowan University, where he is the director he's the priest at the Newman Center there. And he went through with the Holy Eucharist through the town, and they did it live. So I happened to catch it on Instagram for a little bit, and it was beautiful. And they were sounding bells. It had almost a sense of like an old school, like the bells were what told the people that Mass was going to happen. And here we are going back and in time almost, but it's 2020. It's true. Ringing bells to alert people the Eucharist is coming through your town. And I thought, wow, there's something special happening with this. And
it really is. I mean, there was so we've been talking about a lot of high tech stuff that people can do, the power of the internet. Look at that was a low tech analog version of of what we used to do back in the day. And by we, I mean Catholics, and I mean 100 years ago, long before I was born. And mostly. And that's my parish, and I happen to catch that live stream as well. And I will tell you, I was affected emotionally by it, because he was ended up.
Did you cry, Mike?
I did not cry. I got goosebumps. That was my emotional reaction. I got goosebumps. But don't worry. At some point, I will break down. I'm certain of it. I've been through a couple of these high stress moments in my time at the diocese, and usually about a week after it starts, is I will just be sitting at my desk and fall apart. And then I put myself back together.
Can you just put your selfie camera on?
Yeah, can you do that?
Sure. Yeah,
I would like to see that.
I look good crying. I'm a good crier.
It's going all over my social media whenever I get access to it. Letting you know.
That's fine. I'm an example to others. It's grown men cry. We can all cry. I'm not ashamed of crying. I love crying. I'll cry right now. But
I'll take you when I see you, Mike.
You got it. I've lost. Oh, anyway, so there he was walking through the streets of Glassboro, and he was very good about. He told the people that he put it out on social media that he was going to do it. Had the monstrance in his hand, and he said, "Listen, I'm not looking for a large group of people to follow me, but if you happen to see me come by, just look out your window, say a little prayer, be with us in the moment." And that's what he did. He had a small contingent with him. I forgot actually who was there. I think there were 2 altar servers, himself with the monstrance in his hand walking along, and then a couple of people all safely behind him, separated from each other. And they did it. And it was not a short walk. I want to say that was about an hour walk around our section of Glassboro and Rowan University. And it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful.
It was.
I thought it was beautiful too, because I watched for a little bit on Instagram today. Yeah. And I actually thought I couldn't tell from the angle of the camera, but there must have been people on their steps, because he actually took the monstrance and then he blessed their homes. Yeah. So made the sign of the cross with the monstrance, so giving them the blessing. The other thing I noticed is also the incense was carried. Yeah. And I know it was outside, and I have a particular fondness for incense. I actually love old churches because they smell like incense and wax, So I really thought what he did was beautiful. Really just a beautiful job today. Can I mention something else that happened today, though I haven't seen it yet? I saw the early pictures. Father Manapella.
I was going to ask you about that, Donna.
I was going to say it.
Took himself up in an airplane. He, in a small, it looked like Cessna, small plane, and with the Blessed Sacrament in a monstrance and a statue of Our Lady of Fatima. Yep. And he flew, he didn't fly, somebody was flying that plane, flew the whole perimeter of our diocese, praying the Litany of the Saints and prayers of deliverance for all of us here in Camden Diocese. So I thought it was really, that was a different thing to do, is to have the Blessed Sacrament and Our Lady watching over us.
We actually had a guy from the Catholic Star Herald there, so you will have video of it, not from the actual inside the plane. We won't have video from that. That was a small plane, and our guy wouldn't have fit in there. But I'm not saying he's not small. I'm saying there was enough seats. I know, it didn't come out quite right. And but yeah, absolutely. And Father was saying that he saw the Italian Air Force did it several years ago. It wasn't for this pandemic, but it was several years ago. And he saw it, thought it was a great idea. Had a friend that's had a plane, and decided to go do it. And he was good enough to let Bishop Sullivan know that he was going to do that. And Bishop Sullivan, I happened to be in the room, and the call came through, and Bishop Sullivan turned to me and he goes, "Yeah, we got to cover that." And I go, "You got it, Bishop. We'll do it." So no, that was really wonderful. And that's what I mean, is we're trying a lot of new things. We're all pushing boundaries. I've been putting out emails to all of my YouTube contributors and staff members. And I had a meeting with the Catholic Star Herald today where I said, listen, no idea is too crazy. Because parishes have shut down essentially in terms of having events and stuff like that, we have nothing to cover event-wise, which means we now have to tell people stories. Certainly social media is going to help a lot of people with that, but the Catholic Star Herald has a reach of 44,000 people just through our newspaper alone. Then you put onto that the addition of our social media, and it's a pretty wide reach. And I think people want to know what other people are doing in their spirituality. How are they struggling, and what are they doing to help the struggle? So Star, I'm curious with you. You are someone who also works in the healthcare industry, different side of the coin, but also work in the healthcare industry. I'm curious, how have you been holding up as someone who knows what's going on?
So yesterday, I think it hit a little full circle for me. I was fine up until yesterday. And so yesterday I attended the last daily mass, and that kind of really hit me harder than I expected to. And walking into work today, it was really hard for me to just remain focused and being positive. And, I hear and see all of the changes that the facilities are making, specifically for Inspira. And it's insane the measures that, are being taken right now to assure that everyone's, remaining safe, healthy, and, for not only for the patients, but as well for all of the healthcare workers who work in the hospital. So it's been a little difficult today. So I'm hoping tomorrow is going to be better.
That's a good question for both you and for Nicole. How the medical professionals that how are they holding up? I will tell you, in situations like this, I always look to the medical professionals first, not necessarily for the advice, although I do listen to that. As long as they don't freak out, I don't freak out. That was something I learned when my wife was giving birth, which was because, she was kind of panicking a little bit. And I said, honey, if the nurses look like they don't care, you got nothing to worry about. So Nicole and Star, of the medical people, how are people holding up? Nicole, we'll start with you.
So another fun fact is that while I'm a nurse, my husband, Matt, is also a nurse, and he works in a local ER as a supervisor, and they're not freaking out. I mean, the reality is that hospitals have known about, had some information regarding this for quite a while. I think Virtua has been preparing for it since December, and a lot of them have, done their best and due diligence to be able to be prepared for this. To that point, however, there's always that anxiety over this is new. We don't really know what's going to happen. So, I think just having faith that you're doing the best you can, and that all of your efforts are to help humanity and to protect humanity and to keep our most vulnerable population safe, as well as to protect our healthcare workers. I think that's one of the reasons that they've put these quarantines and these isolations and these social distancing in place, is that it's not just for the public. It's for the people that would be taking care of you if you get sick. If people start showing up and they know they've been exposed and are not taking proper precautions, or if they're out there in the community not taking proper precautions, you could infect healthcare workers, which if that happens, we're bound to the same rules as everyone else. We're quarantined for the 14 days or however many days as well. If we start obliterating our healthcare workers, then our hospitals and all of our community environments that need these frontline personnel are going to be impacted as well. So overall, I think nurses are prepared, nervous, but they're doing their best to just not let their emotions take over.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Star, I don't know what your experience has been. We were actually in a healthcare facility today for Alexis's appointment, and it is a very, very populated facility. As a nurse, I will be completely transparent that when they called for the appointment, I asked if they were going to be limiting patients and was told they are absolutely prioritizing. They've moved to telemedicine and virtual medicine for a lot of the appointments. When we walked in there this morning, it was a ghost town. And as nurses,
Matt and I
both, not from a parent perspective, but as healthcare professionals, looked at each other like, wow, this is reality. You go into the food store and you can look through the Costco, Sam's, and BJ's aisles. There's no toilet paper and, all that. And that's all well and good. And we understand the real why people are doing that. But when you walk into a facility that normally has about 100 patients and kids and all running all over, and not a soul except for the workers are there, it's deafening silence. And it is alarming. However, you have to realize that it doesn't have to be scary. These are precautions that we're taking to try and protect people.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Star, you found the same thing that.
I think now they're just starting to, the precautions that they're taking, and it kind of sits in, and it makes it a reality. And it's like, you know, we need to do this to protect ourselves and to protect the patients ultimately. And, you know, it has to be done, and it's going to be hard, and it's going to be a very stressful time to be able to, you know, rearrange things, but it has to be done. So, yeah.
That's good. I'm curious from all of you, you know, our spiritual lives are in upheaval, right? And we've been talking a little bit about what that means. Have any of you been doing something different that you wouldn't have done if the Mass still existed, like even in your own homes, to sort of maintain your spiritual nature?
Yes. It's been actually a huge blessing in our house to have the evenings together. So usually my husband and my own schedule are opposite, and I have my ministries mostly in the evening, most days of the week, and with a few evenings off, but not all of them. And I've had every evening off for the last few days. And every evening after dinner, we sit down as a family and pray the rosary together. Whereas that used to be done, I pray the rosary on my own time. My husband prayed it on his own time, coming home from work or driving to work. Now we're praying it together. Our 2-year-old's running around doing what he's doing during it. But it's been really beautiful as a family to do that. And then we've utilized Zoom with our youth ministry to have these same kind of interactions that we're doing right now, which is like a video conference, to pray together and to meet and to touch base. So a few of the youth and I did a trial run of it the other day, and I touched base with each one of them, asked them how they were each doing, talked to them, and then we had some time to pray together. And in both respects, it's been really nice, because these were not normally scheduled things that I would have done. I would have been doing it in a different way. And now to let this time bring us together in such a way has been really nice and peaceful. It's been a super overwhelming amount of peace in my own life, and I think bringing peace to others too.
Well, how about you? You know, Donna, I actually thought about you a couple of times over the last couple of days, and not my usual hateful ways.
Thank goodness for that. I'll consider that a great blessing in my life this Lent, Mike. Thanks.
Oh my God.
See
if I do another thing you tell me I have to do.
I'm about to say it's gonna turn. It always goes one way or the other. Either I say something complimentary followed by an insult, or I start with an insult followed by something complimentary. Always balance.
Yeah,
the reason because I was actually kind of worried, because usually you are at the forefront of social media, or you're blowing up my phone with ideas, and I didn't hear from you for days. And I actually got a little worried, not until today, but eventually I got worried. And I was like, wow, I hope Donna's okay, because he hasn't been posting much. So what have you been doing with yourself as you're locked in with your wonderful husband?
So I have a similar experience to Kari, as a little quiet time at home. You know, Joe's retired, but I'm usually on the go a lot with all these things to do around the diocese. So it's actually been very nice. We're doing a little spiritual reading. My parish is actually in the midst of a Lenten mission where we are gathering in each other's homes to explore and discuss The Return of the Prodigal Son by Henri Nouwen, which has been a beautiful experience. We're moving those to Zoom calls now, though. And just to kind of engage in that. And it's been an opportunity to check in with the really active leaders around the diocese right now, trying to get a sense for what are they doing and how might I help them, or how does the diocese help them with the needs that they have uncovered? Like, how do they take care of their parish family at this time? So it's really a reflective time, I find. It's a very Lent, if you will. People really trying to take an introspective look. People still trying to gather. Like, there are some places where Eucharistic adoration is still going on, but they're very careful around the social distancing. We are born to be in community. Yeah. We want to be together. We really want to be together at Mass and adoration and pray together. And people with Lenten events, even parishes now trying to figure out, well, how do we do Stations of the Cross on Friday night? Mm-hmm. How do we come together live? How do we do social distancing? How do we keep our, most at-risk parish family members, safe in all of this time? So some of them really kind of opening up to even doing like Facebook Live, right, for stations. And so really kind of thinking around the new ways to do things. And it's so interesting if you think about where we were a year ago, right? A year ago, and there's a couple.
I don't want to think about where we were a year ago. No,
I know
I hated like a year ago. A year ago
I know
was
you
worst.
did. I know you did because you thought you were working for me then, and now you've turned the tables a year later. So
paybacks, Donna.
A year ago, so this is what, March 18th?
Yeah.
We were 11 days out from the convocation of Catholic leaders to join the gospel in South Jersey. If this had happened last year, it just would have been another layer in, what feels like a devastating spiritual time. And it was also Lent.
Yeah.
However, what I will say about that, and I've said to a number of people, I think spiritually there's been fruits from the convocation that I think that whole idea of church, we can't do what we've always done. We really need to evolve and think about how we engage people. And that's been a little bit of a struggle for us. It's like, wait, this is the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Welcome to this Lent. A year later, we are spiritually stronger. And we're actually, in this course of time, thinking about new ways to do things and wrap our arms around people in different ways we haven't done before. Yeah. So there's some hope in all of that too.
That is a very cogent, great, comforting way of thinking about it. Though I am breaking out in hives thinking about the convocation last year, but
it's not worth it. We had it. It was terrific, but it's next now.
That's right. All I got to say to you is beloved.
I was going to say it.
Right, there's beloved.
It was a great time, Mike. We just enjoyed too much of planning the convocation and then seeing it happen. And now Donna is continuing the work. So I think it's, it proves that it was something that it was worth the investment and it was worth having it. And people are still talking about it.
Right.
And it really was. And actually, I think with the possible exception of Lex, were we all part of it? Kari, did you go to the convocation list?
I did.
Oh, no, you didn't get invited. That's right. I forgot.
I actually was invited. I declined because I had a 1-year-old that I did not have childcare for.
Right, that's right. I forgot.
But other than that, the rest of us were there.
It was fine. It was great.
I heard a lot about it, though.
It was not fine. It was great, Mike. Come on.
Yeah, right. It was great. It was great.
I do have to say something before you move on. Just adding up to what Donna was talking about and Lent. Mm-hmm. I have the feeling that when we come to Easter Day, that this is going to be a very special Easter season for all of us Catholics. And, it's like, we're going through a suffering right now, just like, not compared to what Jesus had, but it's a kind of suffering, and it's adding to our sacrifices during Lent, so we can sort of like offer that in prayer and there needs to be a combination so that when it comes to the day of the resurrection, we will rejoice. And I hope that the coronavirus is getting better then, and that is such a special day that we can all be happy in the world and see the hope.
Yeah. And I keep praying for a miracle, realizing that sometimes, God answers with no. And I've learned to accept that, like all of us have rather.
Mike,
What?
He doesn't really say no. He doesn't say no. He says, I have a different plan, Michael.
Mm-hmm. I have a different time.
No, comma. Yeah. I have a different plan. Fine. There you go. The thing that's, difficult, or the thing that I've kind of the thing I've been trying to wrap my brain around is the realization that, and I think it's important that people do realize this, that the changes are going to be incremental, that it's not going to be, it's not going to be the flip of a switch where we can all go back and do our thing. That's going to happen. And I see Nicole sort of nodding her head right now, that things are going to get slowly back to normal. It's not going to be one day everything happens again. Right, Nicole?
No, it's going to be a new normal. And, being new to this environment with the podcast, the one thing that's been resonating and I keep thinking is necessity is the motherhood of invention. And I think that the one thing that everyone, sorry, Marianela, I didn't mean to steal your thunder, but I think the Holy Spirit has been guiding every person on the planet.
That's great.
In whatever respect they are. And, the other thing I'll add, number one, Lex is very humble. One of the ways that she gets through times when she's isolated from the world is things like this. She utilizes technology immensely. It's not very uncommon for us to all of a sudden hear her at 10 o'clock at night on a call with somebody on the West Coast. And I think, that's what everyone here has been saying, is that we're thinking outside the box. And while as a nurse and a mother and a healthcare professional and a Christian and a Catholic, I don't want ever to see something like this pandemic here. I also think that the world a little bit needs to change. And I think we need to realize that, you know, the miracle that you would like to happen, Mike, I agree kind of with Donna, is that it might not be what are all those songs? And there's verses that, of course, escape me right now from the Bible that say you might be praying the wrong prayer. You know, we don't necessarily need a miracle. We need an eye-opening experience that is going to help the world realize that we are not as invincible as we are, and that we need to bond together and work together and get creative, as the convocation so graciously taught all of us, is that if we keep, just in medicine, we used to say, if you keep doing what you do, you're going to keep getting what you get. Well, we did until we started changing our best practices. So we just need to do some of those things. And I think it might not be a bad idea for moving forward. We all have a new normal and a more aware normal and a healthier normal and possibly a more conjoined Catholic Christian community.
I love that. That's a wonderful way of looking at it.
And agree more. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. I agree.
All right. I'm trying not to say anything funny right now. Because it was so sweet. I don't want to ruin it. I was like, I don't want to ruin it.
Mike, don't ruin it. Buddy, don't ruin it.
Start crying. Just
all my No, ain't gonna happen. But I'll tell you what, when I do cry, I will try to get it on camera. No problem. I'll call McCusker over and say, take some video.
Mike,
yes, ma'am.
I could take just a second to,
sure,
you know, families that are part of the Catholic schools of South Jersey, you know, to sort of like continue to look for information. Like every principal in our diocese is working on remote learning, and our kids are supposed to get like 4 hours of work during the day. And so the teachers have been working really, really hard to make sure that they provide materials for the students to either pick up or send via email or any way of communication. So today was my first day at home with my little one in pre-K, which is, you know, tough age to teach. So Ms. Casañas, thank you. It was a challenge. And I had also my niece who's in kindergarten. So I was trying to be a teacher for 4 hours, actually, like started at 8 a.m. in the morning and ended by noon, actually did breaks and everything. And it was a challenge, but, you know, we were able to pray in the morning and try to start as they started school. And that was a blessing. And I think all of us need to adapt to what we need to be doing at this point, like, you know, stay home and find new ways of prayer. Like I've actually have been looking for things that I can do to increase and better my spiritual life. And I did Vísperas last night. I don't know how to say Vísperas. I don't know how to say that in English. I'm sorry.
Vespers?
Like, Vespers?
Yes.
Vespers. Okay.
Vespers.
Yes. And, you know, I did the completes too. I don't know if I'm saying it right. Am I saying it right, Kari?
Compline. I think it's Compline from the Liturgy of the Hours.
Yes.
Beautiful prayer.
Yes.
The Liturgy of the Hours is beautiful.
It's beautiful, and I really enjoy it. And I felt like, you know, at the end of the night when it says, now you can go and sort of like sleep in peace. It was such a beautiful experience, and I think I'll continue to do that. So these are new ways we need to find to, you know, just deepen our faith and keep our trust in God.
I think you're going to have to record another podcast or another YouTube show, Marianela, soon. So I think you found your next topic is teaching people how to do the Litany of the Hours.
Yeah.
The Divine Office, whatever it's called, whichever it's called. Okay,
Litany
everybody.
of the Hours.
Well, thank you all very much for joining us. Does anybody have any final thoughts before we sign off? It's okay if you don't. Lex, we haven't heard you nearly enough.
So I want to touch on the Catholic school thing, because a lot of people, because I work at Bishop McHugh down here, and a lot of it, like, I'm friends with a lot of teachers on Facebook, and they're all kind of saying the same thing about how they wish they could, like, they miss their students. Like, you want to know how many times they would come in and not complain, but just the kids would get on their nerves. They would come in the office and just start talking about that. And then, like, now it's just nice to see how, like, not nice because it's kind of sad, but like they're just looking like it's a different kind of perspective because they, like my aunt, for example, is teaching my cousins. I mean, she's a teacher, but still, like it's getting difficult because they're used to being in a classroom environment and she is used to dealing with older kids. Mm-hmm. But like with Bishop McHugh, the kids, they're like, I feel bad because they're not getting to do their communion retreat and all this special stuff because of this virus. And it's kind of upsetting, but at the same time, like, it's all going to work out in the end. So,
well, you are proof positive of that, Lex. Absolutely. And I tend to agree. For all of the doom and gloom we hear, and I don't really like to think of it as that. Actually, I shouldn't say that. The reality that we see on the news and that comes through our social media. You know, I genuinely do believe that things happen for a reason, and you know, and I'm very like I haven't been really freaked out by the new normal yet. I've been freaked out trying to get things set up in the diocese and make sure that we're able to do what my department has to do in service to the parishes and the schools. But it has, I don't know if maybe that's when I'll break down and cry is on, you know, the first day I'm actually home with nothing to do, looking at the walls going, what am I going to do? But I will tell you that the thing that has made me happiest is that I have seen a lot of great ideas come out and people are sitting there going, I don't get the impression too many people are sitting there stewing that, well, I've got nothing to do. It's what, you know, they don't seem to be depressed. The ones that seem to be handling it particularly well are the ones who are making an effort to figure out new ways of keeping themselves motivated, keeping their spirituality up and finding new ways. So I guess the real way is to sort of get through it is you just don't stop. Just keep doing something every single day. You know what? And if it's reading the Bible or if it's doing the divine office or if it's saying the rosary or if it's a litany of all of those things, keep it up. And you know, we are going to get through this together. Bishop celebrated his 75th birthday on Wednesday. Or
Happy birthday,
rather.
Bishop.
Yeah, Tuesday. and if you speak Spanish, I highly recommend you check out the latest edition of Compartiendo to Donna on YouTube, where Marianela and Jose, her co-host, sat down with Bishop Sullivan for a 30-minute interview, and it was really, really good. I assume, anyway. I don't speak Spanish, but I'm guessing it was pretty good. He seemed to enjoy it a great deal.
It was a great conversation.
Yeah, but the thing I posted on there was that no matter what's going on in our world, the Earth is going to continue to spin around the sun. And because of that, you know, we will have something to do every day. So just do everything you can to go out and do something. Okay? Yeah. And take care of each other and look after people and wash your hands.
And take advantage of this time.
Like Nicole was saying, we have new opportunities here. We just haven't realized it yet. You know?
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you to all of my hosts and the one mom.
One mom.
Not my mom. Lex's mom. To our hosts of our various podcasts and YouTube shows for joining us today. And thank you to all of our listeners for joining us today. And we will continue to bring new content to you. We know it'll be kind of strange, but for a while, but we will keep doing it. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Mike.
God bless.
Bye,
everybody.
Thank you.